Have you ever been told that you ask too many questions? I have. I eventually got a job as a newspaper reporter, and now I get to talk to people and ask them questions, and I get paid for it. So I've learned so much from the people that I talk to. I've learned so much about our city, its infrastructure, the way that the politics work. So that has been really, really interesting. So I've been thinking about curiosity itself, and I decided to dive into the research a little bit. Turns out most animals have an innate sense of curiosity, even down to flatworms, said one study. Who knew? So I'm Danelle, and on this channel we find ways to get older better. And today I want to share with you what I've learned about curiosity. I'm curious about a lot of things. For many years I was really curious about what happens at fire departments. What happens inside of an ambulance? I'd never been inside of an ambulance. I didn't know anybody who had. So what do the firefighters do? How do they fight fires? How do they extricate people out of their cars? And so that led me to join the fire department and volunteer for the last 11 years. And here's some of our cars that we've practiced cutting people out of. We light them on fire, practice putting the fires out. So that's been really awesome to learn, and my curiosity led me to a great volunteer experience. Another thing I was curious about over the years was, why do some people have such well-trained dogs? How did they do that? Why are some dogs so well behaved and others aren't? So I started looking into dog training, and that led me into an almost 40-year path of becoming a professional dog trainer, competing in dog sports, and becoming a search and rescue handler. So that also led me into another really interesting volunteer experience. As part of my job, I cover city topics, so I have learned some really interesting things, like reading the agenda reports from the Public Works. I found out more about how our town produces hydroelectricity, how old the systems are, how the systems were originally built. It also allowed me to not be so annoyed when the utility rates went up, because now I know how much each of those parts and the pipes and the valves and the employee compensation even costs. So now I can accept even something as simple as a utility rate going up, simply because my curiosity led me to learn more. Another thing I was curious about is this dam. This is the Connell Lake Dam. I didn't know why it was there. Why did they dam up this lake? It's not a hydroelectric dam. And what are these wooden pipelines that come out of the dam? It turns out that it was built in 1952 when our pulp mill was built. And the dam was built simply to supply water to the pulp mill. So it's not even a hydroelectric dam. And it still supplies water to the pulp mill. So that was an interesting thing to learn, not immediately actionable information or anything. And another thing I was interested in since the time that I moved to Ketchikan was the Alaska Native culture. We are on the land of the Tlingit Alaska Native people, and their culture here is very, very active. They have people teaching the Haida and Tsimshian and Tlingit language. All three of those tribes live here. And they have the dancing, as you can see in this video here. They put on performances, they dance for the community, they still hold potlatches. We have active totem pole carvers here. We have the bark weavers. We have all kinds of the native arts here. So that has been really interesting to learn about. And learning that information is kind of interesting for someone like me, who is a mix of about 6 different ethnicities from Europe, and it helps me to kind of put my ethnicity or lack of it, just learning about how the Alaska Natives have been able to preserve their culture and their language and their art so well after going through being taken away from their families and put in boarding schools. It's just a really interesting lesson in resiliency and the ties that bind them together within their culture, and that's been really interesting to learn more about. A few of the things I learned about curiosity, some of the benefits. Curiosity fuels learning, growth, and adaptability. It keeps your mind engaged, encourages deeper understanding, and helps you to develop problem-solving skills. Curious people tend to be more open-minded, creative, and better at navigating challenges because they're open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. Curious people actively seek knowledge and new perspectives. So in some ways, that was what was interesting to me about learning more about the Alaska Native culture here. I wanted to seek this, I wanted to try to see from their perspective, not just my perspective. Curiosity also can make your relationships with people better because you're asking questions about them, you're listening, you are trying to understand them and where they're coming from. Curiosity can also just make you happier. You're going to be less bored, you're going to be a lifelong learner. When you go outside, you're going to be not just noticing trees, you're going to be noticing, why is that tree's bark different than this one? Why is that tree dying and this tree is thriving? What kind of spider is this? Instead of just looking at life as, yes, there's a spider, there's a bunch of trees. Curiosity, according to research, can even boost achievement. It makes people delve deeper into their work, into their studies, and that in turn will make them more successful at work, will help them be more successful at school. Curiosity can also help to strengthen your relationships. Asking sincere questions and listening and being engaged will let people know that you are a warm person who is worth being around. There can be a dark side to curiosity. When it gets a little too ramped up, it can lead into ADHD type behavior. You're going to be distractible. You're curious about this. You're curious about that. That is part of why sometimes we'll get sucked into just scrolling through TikTok or scrolling through Instagram. You're curious about this, and then you're curious about the next thing. You can get sucked into clickbait. You can get sucked into fake news. You can just be too distractible, and then you don't delve into any real deep knowledge. How can you foster and grow your curiosity in a healthy way? One thing is to just ask more questions. Don't just ask the questions, but listen when somebody is giving you that answer and absorb that so that you can reflect on it and add that to your knowledge. Another way is to embrace new experiences. Embracing new experiences just makes more connections in the brain. And as I mention a lot in my videos, that's always good for preventing dementia. You are keeping your brain active, you're keeping those synapses going. And so another way to enhance your curiosity is to embrace new experiences. So try a different genre of books, try new activities, try new sports, try new music, drive a different route to work. Maybe visit a little town that you've never been to before. Try some new foods. Try some new recipes. Listen to different viewpoints and engage with people that you wouldn't normally. Maybe someone who you know is from the opposite political spectrum as you, and really listen and absorb. Ask them questions. Don't just try to think of what you want to say next or the point that you want to make. Really, really listen and take in the information. Even if you don't agree, it's just adding to that body of knowledge. When you are talking to people, practice active listening. Again, don't just, while they're talking, try to think of what you want to say next. Listen to what they have to say and ask a follow-up question. Develop a growth mindset. See obstacles as chances to learn rather than as obstacles. Also, this is a hard one, accept that you don't know everything. Also, things that you already are curious about, instead of just briefly looking it up on Wikipedia or something, dive really deep into it. Go into a deep dive on that. That's kind of what I did with the firefighting and fire departments. I thought maybe I would just learn about being an EMT. What's that like? And then I got in there and I was more curious about, well, what's firefighting about? And then I got more into firefighting, and then I got deeper into it, and then I took the Firefighter 1 class. This is me at graduation in this picture. And then later I did a week-long hazmat class, a very intensive class. We had to fly up to a different city, spent a whole week, had to take 2 intense written tests that were 100 questions long. We had to don our big suits and go out and do tests out on the grounds. So sometimes diving deep into something that interests you, but you want to go all the way and find out all the little the side roads and the ins and the outs can just be really satisfying. Try different ways of doing things, different ways to solve problems. Try different approaches. Be okay with making mistakes. Be okay with taking risks. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to have gone down the wrong rabbit hole. When I looked into the research of what curiosity actually means, they had several different aspects of the definition. One of them was that curiosity is a way to acquire knowledge. Another aspect is that curiosity has an evolutionary aspect, so that actually improved an organism's fitness when they were curious and were looking for ways to find food or ways to survive better. Another thing they found is that curiosity activates the learning systems in the brain in all kinds of organisms. So that's something we want to keep doing as we age. We want to keep activating our learning systems in our brains. Keep us young, keep us joyful, keep us full of energy for life, keeps us from being bored. So get out there and get your curiosity on. In that research paper, they also found that curiosity activates the learning centers of the brain. And that is something we need as we age to keep our brain healthy, to keep it robust, and to keep us joyful, to keep us engaged with the world and wanting to look forward to the next day. We're curious about that next thing. We don't just go for a walk and plod through the walk. We're looking around. We're saying, wonder why they built that shed that way. Why does that roof look unusual? What in the world is that bird up there? Maybe you'll even get a pair of binoculars so you can see what that bird is. Maybe you'll get into birding because your curiosity will lead you deeper and deeper and deeper down that. And there is a lot to learn about birds. That's one thing I have learned. Thanks for being here today to talk about curiosity a little bit. I hope that you are a curious person and that you like to learn more and ask questions of people. That's one thing actually that I found that could be a downside of curiosity, is asking too many questions of people in the wrong situation, then it turns into nosiness. So I think we've all learned that by this age. What are some of the things that you have learned, some hobbies that have been inspired by curiosity? What are your thoughts about curiosity? If you also are interested in creativity, which actually is very closely related to curiosity, check out this video over here that I made about creativity. And I really appreciate you stopping by, and stay curious.